Okay.
Hi, Krishna. So, with Father's Day coming up, we women wanted to reach out and understand dad's trials and tribulations regarding parenting. How can we support you in better ways? How can we work together more efficiently? Do we have unrealistic expectations? We just thought maybe we'd interview you guys and see how it's going for you and what we can do from our side and go from there. So I thought I'd start by asking each of you, how did becoming a father impact you? You want to start?
Um, well, that was
This is my husband, in case you all don't know, and we have three kids and eight grandparents. I mean, eight grandkids. Do we have eight or do we have nine? Eight.
eight grandkids. Mm. So reflecting on back how that changed me, if I look back, that's like about 37, 40 years ago. And also recently there was in the last 20 years was introduction of numerous grandkids. I think in retrospect from my vision now, I think it was a very enriching experience. And there were some trials and tribulations, but I think it was an opportunity to do a lot of internal growth in those situations. And in retrospect, also now in observing couples and the challenges they go through, um, I really see that parenthood and fatherhood or motherhood is an opportunity to practice the tenets that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling us in the Shikshashtaka prayers that we need to develop, which is humility, tolerance, and patience. And having
Like it or
children,
lump it.
yeah, having children gives you immense opportunity to practice patience and tolerance. And I've also observed that uh, although to a degree we tolerate, because there's an element of love there, I've observed that tolerance tempered with love becomes patience. It's much easier to be patient than teeth gritting, tolerant, and developing healthy attitudes and developing that internal feeling of love in all circumstances makes it much easier to endure the inevitable challenges. And I think that's what I learned a lot about in child rearing years.
I'm just remembering before we had kids, there was quite a few young kids running around the temple, and you were so overwhelmed by the chaos of it that you were wondering if we should even have kids. So, it
Well,
kind of,
that was one incident. It was a 6 hour car ride with somebody with, I think, four kids who were all under maybe 7 years old. And the kids were like, uh, it was 6 hours of chaos. That was one experience. My other experiences with kids, were good.
it's somehow different though when they're your kids. How about for you, Aksh? What's your experience?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a great honor to be with you both because you're our um, dear guides and have been supporting us for so many years. Uh, yeah, I became a father in 2020 in the height of the pandemic, a time of great turbulence and uncertainty and fear, even I must say. So it's quite a entry into parenthood and fatherhood. And I guess so. It hasn't been too long. I'm on the other side of it. I have a 3.5 year old and an 8-month old. So very much in the thick of the early years. Um, I would say I kind of sum up how fatherhood has impacted me as humbling. Um, and in a few ways, I've kind of experienced the humbling. One is I felt that maybe I was relatively selfless. And as I thought of that, I thought of myself in that way beforehand. I thought that I'm a relatively, I don't know, I kind person and selfless, and but somehow that took a very different definition having children. Um, and that shift from it being about me and my time and being about someone else primarily, with myself somewhat included and sprinkled throughout all of that. That was a big shift. Um, and then, like Partha Prabhu said, also bringing out certain um, uh, qualities and challenges, sometimes even things that might not be so desirable, that you don't recognize, that I've realized, wow, that's, you know, something that I should probably deal with. And, I just never really um, came up to that kind of extent before kids. So I would say that opportunity to actively work on something. And then the other way that it sort of humbled me is, again, I felt like I sort of understood, okay, here might be my role as a father, and here might be my wife's role as a mother, and realizing that it's just way more complicated. And there's a lot of nurturing that a father has to do, and protective function that a mother has to do. And there's a lot of cross, pollination of duties and responsibilities, and um, so a lot of assumptions that I had about roles, about time, about sleep, all are very challenged. Um, but in a good way, I think that has forced me to kind of reframe my understanding of what this phase of life is. So I don't know. Those are just some initial thoughts that I know we'll get into more of this.
It's interesting. I read a study from 2016 or something that fathers who interact with their kids, they actually experience a decrease in testosterone, an increase in oxytocin, and in prolactin, just like the mothers do. It's actually
Mm,
brought out in them. So they're able to be more nurturing than they even knew they were. And they somehow or other feel that bonding takes place. And Christians sort of arrange some hormones in there to, help it along. So that there's a secure attachments from the kids.
mm,
So it was kind of interesting.
yeah.
Can you give us a highlight or two of being a dad?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say to that point that you just made about the study, that's really fascinating. Um, I have felt my heart open up in a ways that I would have never really understood is even possible. Um, and and that's something that I've been just reflecting on. Again, because a lot of people that have known me in the past, also pre-kids, know me to be, a certain type of personality, a little bit more maybe aloof and um, detached. And I would say that parenting and fatherhood has definitely changed me in that respect. In a way, balanced me a bit more. Um, and then the other thing that I've also found to be a highlight is, especially as the kids have gotten older, and my 3.5-year-old, it's having really interesting conversations that can go pretty deep. So, I mean, lately a lot of it has been around roles in our house, and he's been sort of noticing, when I'm in the kitchen, he'll ask, "What are you making?" And what he's really trying to find out is, what does, and he'll even say, Papa, what do you know how to make? And he's kind of getting at this idea that, um, yeah, that perhaps there are sort of different like roles in the household. And when he's sort of seeing that dynamic can move around a bit. For example, right now he's with me, and I'm taking care of him for a few days. That he's kind of seeing that Papa also can be in the kitchen. Now, there's more behind it. Is that when I sort of um, grew up, there was a different idea around roles in the house, and so of course I also significantly influenced by that, which I think also plays out in our household. But he's noticing these things, and we're able to talk about it, which is just
Nice.
it's just a highlight for me. Like I think these years as they grow up and start to ask questions, and I'm actually not bothered by it. I really enjoy it.
That's pretty cool for a 3-year-old. He's trying to figure out, so when dad's in the kitchen, do I just get toast and pasta? Or how does this work?
Yeah, exactly.
Any highlights for you?
I think as a parent, some of the natural highlights are like the child's, first steps when they start walking and the first words and first sentences. And I remember our middle daughter, um, she wasn't speaking almost anything for quite a while. We were a little concerned, but she wasn't really talking. And then one day, one ominous day, these sentences just started coming out. And after that, it was like 16 years of constant, why? Tell me, why is it this way? She wants an explanation of everything. Continually
Mm.
asking questions, continually talking. And I think one thing that was kind of a highlight for me was how my perspective of time changed as I got older, and being able to see, our kids grow up and develop and become like youth, and then teenagers, young adults, mature adults, and seeing our grandkids also develop. But just to see the kids develop over time, it's like it's actually quite encouraging, quite enlivening to see that. And it's a very different kind of perspective when you first have kids. You don't really notice the big changes over a long period of time, but being able to have that broad perspective, it's actually quite amazing to see your kids grow up, the grandkids grow up, the kids in the community grow up. It's nice.
Mm.
That's always a highlight for me, watching these kids grow up.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
Aksh, did you experience overwhelm or anxieties of some sort as a new father? And like, what's tough about it?
Yeah, I guess specifically to that part. So I guess it might be different depending on different people, right? Their sort of their own personalities. So for me, um, one of the challenges was very early on, like within the first few months, was like having difficulty stepping into the confidence of being a parent, because it's quite like, and when you're also with someone like Gopika, my wife, who's, I mean, although it's hard for anybody, but she certainly had a little bit more of an idea what was going on, or it's much more of an idea what was going on. It was, I remember it being tough for me to step into that role with some level of confidence. And I saw that when I didn't, it was impacting even the baby, because there was almost like you could kind of feel that you didn't really know what you were doing, how you were putting them to sleep, and like understanding what their needs were, anticipating. And even now, as a toddler, or for our 3.5-year-old, all of that is still necessary. So I, realizing that there's sort of this like stepping into the role that you kind of just get into the deep end and sink or swim in a way. And I remember really having to pray hard and swim and just go for it. And I think a lot of new fathers kind of find their stride after some time. So I did as well. But I remember that transition being pretty challenging. Um, and then overall, I'd say also the challenge, and still continues to be, just feeling like just feeling always falling a little short of my expectations. Like um, from a spiritual perspective or from a quality time perspective, um, like there's ideals that I hold about how I'd like to be a father. And then there's just the reality of sometimes not meeting that. And that can be hard. Um, you just kind of keep trying, I suppose. But that has been, something that I've been, thinking about more lately as well.
I remember from like being a mother, I always thought, okay, well, he's having difficulty putting the kids to sleep. I should just take it because I know the tricks. But
Mm,
then he doesn't really learn it. And then I saw with my daughter, well, she had twins. It's like one of them screaming and the dad's doing whatever he can. And, there's nothing she can do about it. He just has to learn. And he learned he learned pretty fast.
mm,
So I see that sometimes we can sabotage our learning because we think we have to like come to the rescue or, because we've done it more or we got the milk so we can soothe them easier or whatever.
mm,
But not to rob dads of, the learning curve because we also have the learning curve
mm.
and we struggle with it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you, what sacrifices did you feel you had to undergo when you became a dad? Do you,
Um, yeah, just going back to the previous question in terms of challenges, and it was a sacrifice. I was at that time I was head pujari and head cook, which meant I was on call from practically 4 in the morning till 9:30 at night. And it made it difficult to always try and find time to do stuff with the kids or trying to schedule time because you never know when someone's going to phone up and say, Prabhu, I can't do arti because I have water in my ear or something. And, that was a little stressful and challenging. And it became even more challenging in the 80s. There was a big uh, financial crunch, and many devotees left. And during the zonal acharya era, and I ended up being head pujari and working, and I was extremely uh, practically never saw Uttama or the kids for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, although we were living in the same house. That
Mm,
was very difficult, but I received personal instructions from Srila Prabhupada to look after the deities, and I was doing that and trying to find some time with the kids and get my rounds done. It was an extremely difficult time. And it was like being in a tunnel and you couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you knew eventually it would be light at the tunnel. And so that involved a lot of personal sacrifice, just trying to balance that situation for many years as best I could. And then when things started to improve in the temple situation, I was able to spend more time with the kids. And I think as a result of that and some other factors was one of the reasons we moved to Sarnagati. I just wanted to simplify my life in a way that I could have more time to spend with the family and kids. And I think that was a necessary sacrifice to me. And Krishna made some amazing arrangements for us to end up in Sarnagati, which was
Mhm.
a great blessing.
mm. Wow.
Aksh, on a personal level, have you found that your relationship with your peers has changed at all since you've become a dad?
Hmm. Definitely has. Um, I mean, just I think given the schedules and sort of current priorities, um, I would say time is challenging to find, and regular time, scheduled time is hard to find. Um, yeah, because one of the things I was going to say about when you were just starting to ask about the sacrifices, I think that for me the biggest thing has just been the surrender needed um, to the kids' schedule. So something will happen and things have to kind of be adjusted on the fly, and that has kind of always you know been something that sort of like challenges me. But I think that then plays into also just your relationships outside the home as well, because you can't always spend time with people or even schedule chats and stuff so easily. So it's been tough. But yeah, I'd also say that one thing I've noticed is there's been more of a impetus to reconnect with other friends that have kids,
Hmm.
um, who also share in the this phase of life. And even if those friends are not local, and
Okay.
and even if those friends are not people that we always are super close with or may not even agree with everything on, still there's almost this, um, as long as we all value our children and have somewhat similar like parenting approach, that has definitely, I can see a lot of that has organically evolved, where a lot of our kind of company as of late has been more and more parents, um, like-minded parents that we've reconnected with, in our age group. So that's been interesting.
So you develop some new camaraderie over the kids.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mhm.
For me, I don't think it changed my relationship with my peers. At the Vancouver Temple, there were some apartment blocks that were quite close together, and there was one eccentric brahmachari who had this. His name was Dadi Harta, and he had a little dairy. He would sell homemade ice cream and make French fries and veggie burgers, and he'd always do that every evening. So the Sankirtan boys would come back in the evening and hang out there. And somehow or other, I could always at least find 5 or 10 minutes to walk 20 yards to Dadi Harta's dairy and hang out with the guys for a little bit. So that was kind of a fortunate situation. That was kind of some compact association there. And even though it was very hectic, could always find a few minutes just to have some exchanges with God brothers. And that was nice.
Mhm.
Yeah. Nice.
Aksh, as a young dad, what supports would be helpful for you?
What supports? Hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is something that's maybe different, um, maybe for everybody, depending on their dynamic. So, oops, their dynamic with their, if there's a partner. Um, but for me, the support I need often is being able to find time to take care of myself, because
Mhm.
my tendency is really to give up, myself, and um, give up sleep, and really push myself over the edge. And that's just how I've always been. I don't have that, or that strong of a self-preservation instinct, or kind of take care of what I need so easily. So that's something I've realized I sort of, and even when I tried to create it, you know, I could use some support in knowing that I have, um,
We'll actually have the time,
space, the
space,
time
yeah.
and the space to do it. Yeah. So that I know is definitely a big, um, big one. And then the other thing is just, I guess, maybe feeling valued as a father. And this is perhaps a big topic. Could see where it goes, but I've I think right now there's certainly a lot of um, conversation, whether it's in our home, but also, in the, social media world and the parenting world around, you know, moms and kind of caregiver fatigue and mental load and all of these things that are really important. I think my wife does more than I do by far. Um, and there's no doubt about that. It's a really valuable foundation for our household. Um, but I think sometimes I'm not sure if, you know, for me, being a dad is hard too, I guess, is what I'm
Mhm.
trying to say. And it's in a
Yeah.
different way, not in taking away at all from how hard it is being a mom with young children, but being a dad is hard too. And it's almost like, you're dealing with, um, the societal kind of pressures and expectations and trying to navigate roles, trying to deal with kind of your past, um, and what you're bringing into the relationship, what you're bringing into fatherhood, um, and and all of that. And I think the other piece of it, for us personally, has been I've been working from home a lot. Just that naturally happened after the pandemic, and while there's a great blessing to that, that also means there's a lot of scheduling and communication and negotiation and renegotiation of tasks that is involved, which also is kind of challenging to navigate. So I think it's just feeling that, hey, like, we're gonna get through this. What you're doing is also important, um, especially in those younger years. I think it can feel sometimes that, especially if, in this case, my case, like, as the main breadwinner, can feel like, okay, I'm just working and that's paying the bills, but the focus is so much on the kids, right? That it sort of feels like, almost a side hustle. Uh, and I think just kind of recognizing that that's important as well, and figuring out how to navigate in a way that is, um, values that, but also, you know, gives, um, appreciation for what everybody's bringing, especially the mom, because there's no doubt about what she does. Um, I feel like that's something that I know I you know need as part of being a dad. So yeah.
So you need some time for yourself and some acknowledgement of your value.
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, it's, I guess what I'm trying to say with the second part is, I'm not, in this case, in our situation, I'm not the primary caregiver. And I'm also, not, nursing the child and that sort of thing. So in some ways, like, and those are very, you know, tasks that have a high degree of focus, right, and priority, and they have very, you can say, also immediate consequences on a day-to-day basis. Like, you need food on the table, or else, like, you know that's, so it's, and that's why I say that nothing takes away from the person that has to handle that task, because that's just really stressful and incredibly important for us. um but it's also, I think, in that process of prioritizing that, sometimes, as someone who's working, you can kind of feel a bit like you're not contributing as much to that main role. And so sometimes just acknowledging that what you're doing is also important and it's also serving the greater need. I think that helps to feel like
Right.
we're all part of a team. Yeah.
Mhm. So, as a partner, if we're feeling some overwhelm and we need some help, do you find that sometimes, partners, we can have like unrealistic expectations of when you're available, how much you can do? Is there ways that we ask that can be triggering? Like I have friends that said I could never ask my husband for help. He would just say, "You're just trying to control me," and they didn't know how to ask their husbands for help, and they didn't get much. So, how's the experience for you on that? What makes it easier? How do you um, balance it?
Yeah, I mean, so I'd love to hear Partha Prabhu's
You want to
answer
answer on
too,
that?
but
Well,
do you, yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to say, I have to look back in retrospect, and I actually wish you would have expressed to me more what you were going through. I mean, I had a lot of um, constrictions because of my position as head pujari and the responsibilities, but at the same time, if I had a more clear idea of what you were going through, and if you would have requested me to do things, like I could have gone out of my way to do more. So I, I actually wish you would have told me more and maybe made more requests. But I think we had these, I don't know if they were Vedic expectations or if it was just our situation. Pachari's got to stay clean. I can't really hold the baby between our teats and that kind of thing. But there's probably was times when I could have been more assistance, but
Yeah, I thought I wasn't supposed
yeah,
to ask. I'm supposed to do it. I'm supposed to be the, you know,
Hmm.
perfect whatever, and it's not my position to even ask. Now I look at that totally different now.
yeah,
If I could do it
it's
again, I would do it differently for sure. Um, I guess my question, because I see you guys are kind of, that's not really your situation.
Hmm.
Sometimes though, you may have work deadlines and she has her overwhelm and like as women, how do we stay receptive to your needs at the same time we're kind of freaking out, and how to
Hmm.
make it so you don't feel guilty but we get the help we need, how to find the balance.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say I don't have a great answer because we're just always struggling with this, if I'm honest with you. Um, yeah, I think a few things that have helped us was trying to define um, either schedules a little bit more clearly in the day. I mean, this is a practical point, but there's certain times of the day where I'll go to work, right? And that's we use that language, but um, so and then we'll like tell my son like we're going to work or I'm going to work, and I'm going downstairs to be in the office, but um just even when there's like a certain set time of the day where I can have like more undisturbed time for a few hours and then rest of the day a little bit more flexible. However, then I have other meetings that come up that I cannot predict, and then they're different from a day-to-day basis. So it's always a challenge. It's not straightforward, and every parent couple that we've spoken with, I think, struggles with this in their own way. Um, Especially if the kids are at home. You know, Even some of the time, it is something that's difficult to navigate. But I think just at least having as much as possible set up in advance, um,
mm,
and notified in advance and sort of agreeing on. I think there's sort of a difference between like I need something in the moment firefighting and having a more sit down thoughtful conversation where we can hash out a system that works, because the firefighting is only you know you can only handle so much of that. I mean, any person
Yeah.
can only handle so much of that,
Mm.
and it doesn't feel good for either party to continually be in that situation. So yeah, I think every now and then we have to revisit our system,
Mm.
and things change, and someone goes to work more or less, or that sort of thing. So it's just been a constant renegotiation. I would say it's just never, it doesn't feel
Mm.
quite settled, but we just try to find something to make it
Never
work.
will be for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I feel like that's probably the case.
That's the
Yeah,
bigger vision.
yeah.
It's like Krishnandini's poem, we're in this together through good times and stormy weather. We're willing to do the work it takes. Be a team. Pray, make less mistakes. And, in retrospect, our own situation that we went through, and also different situations, that we've gone through in different periods in our life, I really can see the importance of we consciousness as opposed to
Mhm.
my needs and her needs. But it's like, what do we need, and how can we can develop a kind of synergy that we're actually working together on this. And there's a phenomena of synergy with oxen. I've known different devotees who've trained oxen different times, and you might have two oxen. Sometimes oxen, they'll have a competition and they'll pull these like a sleigh, and they'll put weight on the sleigh. And let's say one oxen could pull, 1,000 pounds of weight on his sleigh maximum. You have a second ox on another individual sleigh. He could also pull maximum 1,000 pounds. If you took those two oxen and put them on a single yoke, you put them together to pull a load, you could put 2,000 pounds on. They could pull that, and they could probably pull another 500 pounds. So something happens when you have that synergy of oxen or people working together.
Mhm.
My experience is like when we do things together, like the workload seems to, it just, you don't feel like you're alone. And it just makes such a dramatic difference, even though it's the same amount of endeavor, but just knowing that you're working on something meaningful together in some harmonious way, it just synergizes you and get more energy. So, like you're saying, Ox, it takes ongoing conversation to, divide things up. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? But I think the more we can keep that idea, okay, we're a team, and we need to find out how we're going to do this for the benefit of, us and our family. And I think that helps transform it. And is it easy? No, and especially when it's really busy, just to finding the time to have those conversations, that can be difficult. But that's really crucial to find those times and to be able to have those conversations in a
Meaningful.
meaningful, succinct way, so you can, you know, uh, make those kind of plans you need to plan it and work on it that way. But I think it's really important to get that we consciousness going in.
You were saying, Aksh, when you grew up, the roles of a dad that you witnessed were very different than the roles you've stepped into now. Mm,
Mhm.
So, how's your vision changed?
Yeah. I mean, I guess simply just that I think there's every relationship has a different dynamic, and each individual has sort of different needs. And in our dynamic, I think each of us has some needs to feel involved in the parenting and be present, and also some needs maybe to pursue other things outside of that. And those are also important aspects of our life. And in order to meet that needs for both people, it requires both to step in to the parenting role. So even for as a father, I think, um, I'm saying they could work, well the other way around too for some families. Um, but in our case, I think for me, what I've noticed is being involved in the, you know, parenting process. I still don't think I'm as involved as my wife and as knowledgeable and up to date. And she's certainly um, teaches me a lot and leads that. But even just to be aware of a lot of like the parenting concepts and what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it and being consistent with that and being able to prepare meals in the kitchen and that sort of thing so that there's a shared kind of sense amongst each other, a partnership. um yeah, I guess partnership is the word, which that can look differently, but in this case we're talking about some sense of overlap in those duties that one can have. So allowing both people to have different facets of themselves nourished. um yeah, I recently been researching this topic a bit more, um and the idea of roles, and it seemed like particularly like pre-industrial revolution, uh, that the roles were a little bit um, more fluid than it might seem, because many people actually had um, situations where they were basically working from home, and they were often running family businesses out of the home. They had servants, domestic servants in and around the home, and the children were also engaged. Um, and they were learning through the experience of what the family business was. So there's some education happening through that. So interestingly, I think, even women were fulfilling the need to contribute to the family, uh, you know, um,
Income.
livelihood, income, as well as nurturing the children, and the father also was able to fulfill those duties. But a lot has changed, right? Because all those things that I mentioned have shifted, and work has moved outside the house for most people, which has forced people to have to make difficult decisions. And um and I think that just comes down to like, now, how do I see my role? As it's just tricky, right? It's not straightforward. It's not it's not clean one way or the other. But for me, it's worth it because if I think as a devotee, um, you know, I feel that I'm exercising, um, if I'm trying to hold hard boundaries between what I'm supposed to do and not do, or what she's supposed to do or not do, that's really not coming from a healthy place. Um, and a lot of these roles on a material level were defined by the context. And the context has changed. So am I willing to change with the context? And I think that has been a big journey for us right now, is trying to find our groove in that light. So not, yeah, just we're still figuring this out. But it's been fun to also navigate this together. And there's also a lot of people out there that are you know looking at it from different angles. But I think as a someone trying to practice Krishna consciousness, it's almost like we have kind of a principle of Dharma that's very dynamic and is meant to be dynamic. And
Mhm.
so it's not like, to me, it's not like it's not like the most recent trend in parenting and this or that. I mean, this is just it's a dynamic principle of our philosophy that
Mhm.
we can, if we try to practice humility, you can say, okay, what is it that is most needed for me to do right now? And so that's where I think I'm just discovering what this kind of fatherhood looks like for me and maybe for others today.
Mhm.
So you negotiate on the fly.
And
There's
that's your
definitely
Dharma.
some of
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a nice way of putting it. Sometimes we have these lofty ideas of Dharma, but really they're pretty practical.
yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you see that your relationship has changed with your wife since you had kids? And how did your relationship change with me? If you can remember way back when.
Um,
Yes, we didn't have as much time together.
yeah. Especially when I was working at Hipajari. That was very tough. Um, I think those kind of difficult things, difficult times and challenges, when you come through the other side, actually, that kind of cements your relationship even more.
Because of the shared
Yeah, shared struggle and challenges, and
goals.
you make it through it. You have that sense of accomplishment. It's like when your kids are out of the nest, it's kind of a sense of accomplishment, and when you have grandkids and you see they're doing well, it's kind of like you climbed a mountain and you're at the top and you're looking down, thinking the world looks great.
Mm.
Statistics do show, though, that couples often experience marital difficulties, from like when the kids are young up until they're, almost hitting teenage life, just because parenting is just so hectic. And sometimes they forget that they also need to have a relationship with each other, not just a relationship with the kids. And it can be challenging to make that happen. What's your thoughts on that, Aksh? That you're in the
Yes,
throes of
and
it all?
yes, and yes. uh yeah, it is very challenging. um it's challenging to find the time. It's challenging to find the help that will give you the time. So it's a struggle for us. um Sometimes we get help on like some of the, maybe the one or two big days of the year, and an anniversary or something like that. But yeah, it's been a struggle. um so I again don't have a great solve for it right now. um yeah, I mean, everyone's situation would be different as well. Some people have family close by and some don't, and some people are willing to hire help and others prefer not to, and that's so there's a lot of pieces there. I know for us, definitely, like, sometimes the best quality time we get is at night, like around this time. um and right now our younger one is still small, so she still wakes up, and it's not quite there yet. But when they go to sleep, that's really the time that we have to connect. And
If you're not too
I think,
exhausted.
well, there's a very small window. To get really personal, uh, I have to clean the kitchen very quickly, and there's a small window when we have enough brain
If
cells
everything
to
falls into place, you get
actually have a conversation or do anything before it becomes, time to go to sleep or mindless TV or whatever. But yeah, it's been challenging to get good quality time for sure. And we noticed with our first one that it definitely got better when he was able to sleep on his own. Again, also different for every parent and how they approach that sleep situation. But yeah, for us, I think we know that we're kind of hanging in there right now until that settles a bit more with the second one. But yeah, we also, what I would say is, and this works for us, is also having space to um, connect as a couple on something that's meaningful together.
Mhm.
And that for us has been a huge lifesaver in our relationship. I mean, there's so many things that have been missing or just not enough, but that's something that has really kept us going together and kept us excited. And the service that we try to do together, even if it's something, um, even if it's a small thing or a one-time thing, because one thing I've noticed is sometimes, and I'm just speaking from point of view of having young kids, but sometimes you don't have a lot of time to spend together, but you are communicating, right? Texting or sending messages or here and there and in the car together. And so those are like times where I found when, even if like we're working on something together, where we will often be able to have some exchanges that are pretty meaningful just over um, over text or over email or in the car. And those kinds of things can be also really nourishing for the relationship, not to replace maybe um, some of the basic needs for the relationship, um, but but certainly also helps a lot, and we found it's been very helpful for us.
Many little ways to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything either of you would like to share with us that could be meaningful for the listeners? Or
I think it's important for especially dads to play with their kids and talk with their kids and come to their kids' level. If that means the kid's small, you sit on the floor and you just roll the ball back and forth to the kid. Just put down the phone, nothing else, just some little thing like that. Talk with them, the kid a little older, you go and play soccer with them, shoot a few baskets with them, talk with them. And I remember one boy grew up in our community, and maybe he was in his probably 40s then. I saw him and he came up and he thanked me. He said, "I want to thank you." He said, "When I was a kid," he said, "you were the only one that kind of treated me like I was a human being."
everybody else treated me like a little kid that was
Yeah, they're
annoying and in the
talking
way.
down to him, and I just related to him. He's just a kid, so I kind of just related to him. I could see how much that meant to him, and I kind of always tried to do that with my own kids and the kids in the community, like um, just relate to them in a way that's relatable to them. Like I think that's important for parents to do is just remember your kids are kids, and just to do kid things with them and have fun with them. That's really important.
Mm. Do you feel like, if I can ask a question back, that sometimes there might be this idea that as a parent, there needs to be, I don't want to get too close, that there needs to be some level of um, separation as a parent. And maybe this gets even more intense from a father perspective, like what people idea of being a father is, you know, father's a leader of the household, or serves as, or like protective function or something like that, which we could probably also dissect, but you know, it sounds like what you're describing is very like being very vulnerable. It sounds like
I think so. I
maybe
think
a
that's important. Even
challenge to, you
Like
know.
Prabhupada he was our leader, but he was like a servant leader, and
Mhm.
he could relate to anyone, whatever level they were, and made them feel comfortable with who they were and encourage them to move forward. And I think that's like what we need to be with our kids is, we want to lead them forward, but to do that, we have to relate to them in a very personal, compassionate way. And, seeing that we love and care about them in that kind of way, I think that encourages them to be better persons. And
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think we want to be aloof from them, no.
There's always the times when you do have to be the parent. And maybe you have to say, I know that's hard and that's difficult for you, but I know you can do hard things and I'm the parent, so we do have to leave the park right now and go home. It's not that
Mhm.
you're not the parent.
Mhm. Yeah.
However, you do encourage them to take that leap and that they can do it, things that are hard. So you still have to be the parent also, because that gives them security.
Yeah.
How about from you, Aksh? Any parting words?
Parting words. Hmm. I mean, the thing that's always stuck with me is, let fatherhood change you for
Mm,
the better. Um, I think it can be a spiritually transformative experience. I think it's meant to be a spiritually transformative experience, as part of this ashram. And yeah, sometimes I wonder if we sort of dodge the opportunities,
mm.
uh, because it's
It's
uh,
hard.
it's hard, it's scary, and it's easier not to take the opportunities. But yeah, so far um, it's been something that I've been thinking about probably since the beginning, and certainly it has kept me um, sane through difficult challenges, um, especially with our toddler who's soon not going to be a toddler. Uh, that it really is an opportunity, and if I see it that way, if I see it as something that actually fuels my spiritual growth, because sometimes maybe this idea as devotees, it's my spiritual life and then there's my family life. But rather here, your family life, if done properly, actually fuels your spiritual life. And
Exactly.
It is your spiritual
Yes.
life.
yeah, yeah, it is.
Mhm.
And so seeing it more like that um, is very helpful and has helped me a lot
Mhm.
to keep my head straight and yeah, and just try to be curious, try to learn, and just pray that like you said, coming out the other side, you know I mean, I can only imagine if if I'm open to being changed in this way, like what it can do to me in 10, 20 years as a as a father. Um, so yeah, just embracing it, not trying to get around it and not trying to have it as a sort of side job that,
Mhm.
I'll be a parent when I can or when I have time, but just dive in and embrace it. And um, it I think that has been a great blessing for me, and I hope it can be for everyone.
And somehow, in retrospect, it might be easy to think you could do it, but it's very challenging to do it at the time, is to um, appreciate and have gratitude even for the adversity
Yeah,
as an opportunity for spiritual growth. We might not be able to appreciate it at the moment. And
yeah,
when we're in those moments, and um, it's like we have a perception of time, and there's an expression, how long is a minute? And the answer is depends which side of the bathroom door you're on, especially if you have teenage girls.
And
like
one
that.
bathroom.
It's kind of like that. You have kids and, it seems like you're in this tunnel, but actually it goes really quick. And as you get older, you see time actually goes so fast. Time goes so fast. These kids grow up so quickly.
So
And
relish it.
it just, yeah, in that time of parenthood, it seems like time is slowing down. But I think there's a reason it's slowing down because there's so many details there that if we could be grateful and appreciative, we could appreciate that Krishna somehow put it in this situation so I can learn something from this little spirit soul here.
Mm,
And is it easy? No, but
yeah.
there's a purpose behind it.
And to relish those moments because
Yeah.
they pass really
Yeah,
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So we'd like to, thank you both for being the dads you are. And I think it's really nice that there's a Father's Day, just like there's a Mother's Day, because it's equally important. So thank you both for sharing your words of wisdom and your experiences. And I didn't really take an introduction about you, Aksh, but you explained it all. It came out during that talk. How you're a dad of 2 kids, and
yeah.
so thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights and your struggles and your joys.
Thank you for having me and just being the models that you are. So we hope to continue to follow your footsteps and also apply Krishna consciousness to our life in a way that actually can make everything better. So, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We will stop there.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.